Hey, how's it going, guys? Mr. Boss for the win here, and in today's Red Dead Redemption 2 video, I'm going to be telling you guys about one of the most heartbreaking and sad stories in the entire game. So I was reading some of the in-game newspapers the other day, trying to find some cool stories to possibly show you, and in the New Hanover Gazette number 30, which I don't know when you unlock this in-game. I think you actually get this right after Micah escapes the Strawberry Jail. So that should give you a good idea of when you can get this newspaper. And in one of the final articles, there's one called A Massive Motif, Cliff Sculpture in the Grizzlies. And it says, wayfarers in the Grizzlies have reported a massive cliff face sculpture is underway, courtesy of an as yet unknown artist. Undertaken by a lone man, toiling with a hammer and chisel, but rarely seen. He is suspended by hemp rope and works in the beating sun to accomplish his artistic vision of carving a face into a prominent rock face. The project began several weeks ago, according to travelers, who say the man has undertaken it as an homage to his beloved wife. So on the surface level, this seems very wholesome. There's a guy in the Grizzly Mountains who is basically just chiseling his way into the rock, creating a sculpture of his wife. Again, on the surface, it seems like a very simple, unique encounter. Well, it turns out that not only can we discover that, there's a deeper, darker story to this entire thing. So if you'd like to find this for yourself, it is located just above Moonstone Pond. And it's pretty easy to get to. There aren't any like crazy pathways that you have to take. So I got to this point on the mountain where I could begin to see the face. And if you look in, you'll notice something pretty grim. You can obviously see the face on the mountain, but you can also see a person hanging from what looks to be one of the banisters up there. And that is pretty creepy. Now, at this point, we don't know who this is, if this is the sculptor or if this is someone completely different. So let's actually go in a little bit closer so we can find out. So from there, it is pretty easy to get up to the rest of the mountain, and you simply go around this little mountain pass where you can actually get up on the scaffolding. And you guys can clearly see that a man dressed in blue jeans, a white shirt, brown jacket, boots, and white gloves is hanging from this scaffolding. You can also see there are buckets and equipments all over the place. And when you go to the very top, you can see the face on the mountain. Like, the level of detail here is really, really good. And Arthur can actually draw down this in his journal. He doesn't write anything down, but he will try and copy what he sees, which does include the hanging man. Now, before we investigate the hanging man, we need to take a look at what's inside of the chest. There's actually some jewelry, some Guarma rum. There is a pocket watch, an apple, and a special health cure pamphlet, which is actually kind of valuable. So if you want to get these special health cure and craft those for yourself, well, this is where you can actually find it. So there are some nice valuables in here. Now, getting on to the more mysterious part of what's going on here. This man is suspended by a rope, and it turns out if you actually shoot down the rope, the body will fall, and you will have the option to loot the stranger. And if you loot the stranger, you will actually get a note that is note from the sculptor. And it says this: whoever finds this, I am sorry. I was worthless in life, and now I am even more so in my death. I gave my life to my art to create a monument to the one that I loved. But in doing so, I lost her. Great art moves very slowly, but the heart moves very quick. Now I look on her face and I see that terrible French cad, that scribbler, that second-rate smear of colors, that crude little goat. I have been a fool. I will die next to my monument to foolishness. Wow, that is incredibly sad. So to essentially break that down, it sounds as if his wife was having an affair, and his wife was the one that he was actually trying to sculpt this rock out of. Now, there's actually a deeper, darker secret to this. You guys saw that the note mentioned a terrible French cad, a scribbler. That is an artist that we actually meet in game. That is Charles Chatney. And if you know anything about Charles Chatney, you know that he is a painter of intimate photographs and that he has many of times hooked up with other people's spouses. In fact, we see this multiple times happen throughout the course of the mission that you actually do with him, called The Artist's Way, which is in Chapter 4. And what's also kind of interesting is some point during that mission, he actually escapes to one of his lover's, I guess, rooms or houses. In fact, he actually does this on multiple occasions.
Now maybe go be an asshole somewhere else for a while.
Here we are. I know a lady over here. She may let me stay for a while.
Good luck.
That picture I gave you, it will be worth something someday. I can feel it.
Perhaps. Right now, seems like the only thing it'd get me is kicking the balls.
Oh, you are funny, you know. I hope to see you again sometime. My angel, my little bird, it's me!
So I started thinking to myself, is the unknown occupant of both of these houses the former wife, or I guess widow now, of the sculptor who painted the face on the rock? That is incredibly dark right there. And that's something you might not have known about here. So inadvertently, Charles Chantney caused this guy to hang himself, the sculptor on the rock. Now, his wife is certainly at fault here for committing the same act, cheating on him, but Charles Chantney is involved, and that's something you might not have known about. It's sort of a dark secret of the sculptor and his wife. And speaking of Charles Chantney, one of the first things he gives you in that quest line is a photograph. And it's a photograph of a woman, and we don't know how long Charles Chantney has had this, so there's a good chance that this could actually be the sculptor's wife. Now again, there's no evidence to say that other than the fact that it looks like it's some woman, and Charles Chantney definitely knows them in an intimate way. Let's just say that. So those two pieces add up. It could be the sculptor's wife. At this point, that's just my best guess. Now, unfortunately, we don't get any more details on the sculptor from actually going up in this place. Like I said, there's a lot of scaffoldings and buckets and pickaxes, but there isn't anything else that we can gather from this location. So I wanted to do some experiments to see what would happen. The first, silly enough for me, was testing if dynamite would cause any more damage to the face on the cliff, like could we blow chunks out of the side? And the answer is no, and karma got the best of me here as I ended up sliding down the mountain, and then I couldn't get back up. That's another thing you need to be careful of, is this is the face on the cliff, so if you do fall off the edge, you're going to be in a world of trouble. You'll either die or it'll take you a long time to get back up. So that's the first experiment I tried. The next experiment I wanted to try was returning as John Marston, because as you guys know, the epilogue is set in 1907, whereas when you play as Arthur Morgan, it's 1899. So I was curious if there was going to be any changes. After all, 8 years have elapsed. You know, would someone have come and gotten the body? Would someone have completed the face sculpture? And the answer to that is no. Unfortunately, there are no changes that can be seen. In fact, the only difference that happens is that John draws a slightly worse version of the rendition of the face in the cliff and the hanging man. But that's about it. Everything else is exactly the same. Now, the third experiment I wanted to do, which was very cruel, was could I inflict any damage to the hanging body? The answer is no. I even got a shotgun to see if I could blow off some limbs, but the answer is no, you cannot inflict any damage on our poor hanging man right there. Now, a couple of other interesting facts here, getting back to Charles Chantney. You guys know that you interact with him in Chapter 4, and you actually don't unlock that quest line until you get to Chapter 4. However, this face on the cliff and the sculptor's note can be found as early as Chapter 2. So that kind of gives us a timeline here, that it seems as if Charles Chantney cheated on the sculptor's wife before we actually meet him in Chapter 4. Because again, you can encounter this in Chapter 2, which would happen at least a couple of months before then. So that should give us an interesting timeline of when he committed this act and for how long he's been in Saint Denis. I mean, he's not incredibly important to the story, but he is a big reason why this ultimately happened to our friend, the sculptor. So at first glance, this really does seem like a fun, simple Easter egg. It's just a giant face on the cliff, and again, on the surface level, that seems pretty fine. But the more you explore, you find out that this guy's wife cheated on him. And then if you really understand some of the nitty-gritty details, you know that that's Charles Chatney, a character that we've interacted with multiple times in-game. So, as always, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Let me know what you think about this incredibly sad story in Red Dead Redemption 2. I'd love to hear from you guys down there. If you did go on to enjoy this video, though, a like rating would, of course, be awesome. And subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are new, or you like daily Red Dead Redemption 2 videos like this. With all the way, guys, like I said, thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.